Before kings and constitutions, the brutal birth of politics. Politics didn't begin with written constitutions or marble columns. It didn't start with kings or presidents. It emerged the moment human beings had to answer a fundamental question that has haunted us ever since. Who decides and why should anyone listen? Today, we're tracing politics back to its bloody, fascinating origins. From the egalitarian bands of the Paleolithic to the first tyrants, the birth of democracy, and the power structures that still control our lives today. This isn't the sanitized version they taught you in school. This is how humans learn to organize, dominate, and occasionally cooperate, and why we still can't figure out how to do it right. The myth of natural hierarchy. There's a persistent myth that humans are naturally hierarchical, that we've always had chiefs, alphas, and rulers. Evolutionary psychology types love to point at chimpanzees and gorillas with their dominant males and claim human politics is just biology. But here's what anthropologists actually found when they studied the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies that exist today. Groups like the Hadza of Tanzania, the Ju hoansi of the Kalahari, and various Amazonian tribes. These aren't perfect analogs for Paleolithic humans, but they offer crucial insights. They're fiercely egalitarian. There are no permanent chiefs, no inherited power, no one who can command and expect obedience. When someone tries to dominate, to take more than their share, to boss others around, to claim special status, the group uses a devastating political technology: mockery. They laugh at the would-be leader. They ridicule their pretensions. They ostracize them socially. And if that doesn't work, in extreme cases, they kill them. Anthropologist Christopher Boehm documented this pattern across dozens of societies. He called it reverse dominance hierarchy. The group collectively dominates any individual who tries to dominate them. This suggests something radical. For most of human existence, perhaps 95% of our time as a species, we actively suppressed political hierarchy. We evolved in small bands where everyone knew everyone, where reputation mattered more than force, and where would-be tyrants were simply laughed into submission or eliminated. Politics in this era wasn't about who ruled, it was about making sure no one did. The first political act wasn't seizing power, it was preventing anyone else from seizing it. But this egalitarianism had a dark foundation. It only worked at small scale, roughly 25 to 150 people who knew each other personally. It required consensus, which meant endless talking, negotiating, and managing relationships. And it was enforced by the threat of violence against anyone who stepped out of line. The question is, what changed? Why did we abandon this system for kings and dictators? The agricultural catastrophe. Around 10,000 BCE, humans began farming. This wasn't a sudden revolution. It took thousands of years and happened independently in multiple regions. But its political consequences were explosive. Agriculture created something that didn't exist before: surplus. For the first time, people could produce more food than they immediately needed. You could store grain, accumulate wealth, feed people who didn't farm. This sounds like progress. It was also a political disaster. Surplus creates inequality. Some land is more fertile, some families work harder or get lucky. Within generations, some households have more than others. Those with surplus gain power. They can feed others, which creates obligation. They can feed specialists, warriors, craftspeople, priests. Farming also required staying put. You can't farm and be nomadic. Permanent settlements meant investment in specific territory, fields, irrigation, storage facilities. This created something worth defending and something worth stealing. Suddenly, organized violence became profitable. Archaeological evidence shows warfare intensifying around the same time as agriculture mass graves appear. Fortified settlements, weapons designed specifically for killing humans, not hunting animals. Politics was no longer about consensus in a small band. It was about protecting resources and territory from outsiders. And here's where it gets really dark. Agriculture created captives worth keeping. Hunter-gatherers had no use for slaves. You can't force someone to hunt effectively, And nomadic life meant you couldn't guard prisoners. But farmers needed labor. Captives could be forced to work fields. Slavery, the ultimate political hierarchy, became economically viable. The first political hierarchies emerged from this toxic mixture: surplus, settlement, warfare, and slavery. Someone had to organize defense. Someone had to manage the surplus. Someone had to coordinate labor. And whoever did those things gained power that couldn't easily be mocked away. These weren't elected leaders. They were strong men who combined military force, resource control, and often religious authority. The first politics of civilization was the politics of domination, the invention of the state. The earliest states emerged around 3500 BCE in Mesopotamia, shortly after in Egypt, and independently in China, India, and Mesoamerica. These weren't just bigger villages. They were fundamentally different political animals. A state has several characteristics. It claims monopoly on legitimate violence in a territory. Only the state can legally kill, punish, or wage war. It has specialized institutions, bureaucracies, armies, courts separate from kinship structures. It extracts resources through taxation. And critically, most people in a state are strangers to each other. That last point is crucial. You can't run a state on face-to-face consensus. Cities of tens of thousands people need impersonal rules. They need hierarchy that doesn't depend on everyone knowing everyone. They need political technology beyond mockery and murder. The first states solved this through a brilliant and terrible innovation: divine kingship. The king wasn't just the strongest warrior, he was a god, or chosen by gods, or descended from gods. This solved the legitimacy problem. You can't mock a god. Killing a god king isn't just murder. It's blasphemy, cosmic rebellion. Suddenly, political power had ideological reinforcement. Priests became essential political actors. Temples became centers of economic and political control. Religion and politics fused into a single system where questioning the king meant questioning cosmic order itself. But divine kingship created its own problems. What if the king is incompetent? What if he's insane? What if he's a child? The state doesn't stop functioning. Someone still has to make decisions. This created the permanent tension at the heart of ancient politics, the gap between formal authority and actual power. In practice, these states were run by bureaucracies: scribes, priests, generals, advisors. The king's divinity provided legitimacy, but the bureaucracy provided functionality. And bureaucracies developed their own interests, their own internal politics, their own power struggles. This is where politics becomes recognizable to us. Factions competing for influence, officials making backroom deals. Wars fought not for survival, but for glory or economic advantage. Read the correspondence of Egyptian viziers or Mesopotamian court officials? It sounds shockingly modern: backstabbing, flattery, manipulation, strategic marriages, and assassinations. The state invented professional politics, people whose full-time job was gaining and wielding power. The Greek accident. For 3,000 years, divine kingship and autocracy dominated political thought. Then something weird happened in Greece. Greek geography created small, independent city-states rather than vast empires. These cities were wealthy from trade, but small enough that citizens could know each other. And crucially, Greek cities relied on citizen soldiers, not professional armies or slaves, but free men who supplied their own armor and fought in formations called phalanxes. This created a political problem. You can't treat armed citizens the same way you treat unarmed subjects. Citizens who fought for the city demanded a say in how it was run. If you refused, they could simply refuse to fight, or worse, fight against you. Athens took this to a radical extreme. In the 5th century BCE, they developed democracy, ruled by the demos, the people, not representative democracy like modern systems, but direct democracy. Citizens gathered in assemblies, debated, and voted directly on laws, wars, and policies. This sounds utopian. It was also horrifically limited. Citizens meant free adult males born to citizen parents, perhaps 10 to 15% of the population. Women, slaves, and foreigners had no voice. Athenian democracy rested on slavery, imperialism, and exclusion. But as a political innovation, democracy was explosive. For the first time in history, power was legitimized not by divine mandate, but by popular consent. The people were sovereign, leaders were elected, limited in power, and could be exiled or executed if they failed. Athens also developed something unprecedented: political philosophy. Thinkers like Plato and Aristotle analyzed politics systematically. What is justice? What makes a government legitimate? What's the best political system? These weren't religious questions answered by priests. They were rational inquiries anyone could engage with. Aristotle studied 158 different city-state constitutions and analyzed their strengths and weaknesses. He categorized governments: rule by one, monarchy; rule by few, oligarchy; rule by many, democracy. He argued each could be good or corrupt, depending on whether rulers served the common good or their own interests. This was revolutionary. The idea that political systems could be studied, compared, criticized, and improved through reason rather than accepted as divinely ordained. Of course, Athens also showed democracy's dangers. Popular assemblies could be swayed by demagogues. Democratic Athens voted to execute Socrates for corrupting the youth. The people could be as tyrannical as any king. Democratic Athens also built an empire, enslaved populations, and committed atrocities. But the conceptual breakthrough remained. Power could be questioned, systems could be debated, and ordinary people could claim political authority. That genie never went back in the bottle. The evolution continues. Greek democracy died, conquered first by Macedonia, then absorbed into Rome. Rome experimented with republican government, elected officials, separated powers, checks and balances, but it too collapsed into autocracy under the emperors. For over 1,000 years in Europe, divine right monarchy dominated again, now with Christian rather than pagan legitimization. The king ruled by God's will. To rebel was sin, but the ideas survived. Medieval thinkers debated legitimate authority. Renaissance scholars rediscovered Greek and Roman political philosophy. Enlightenment philosophers like Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu argued for natural rights, social contracts, and popular sovereignty. These ideas fueled revolutions. America in 1776, France in 1789, waves of rebellion throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. Democracy returned, now in representative form for large populations. But here's what's fascinating. The fundamental questions remain unsolved. Who should decide? How do we balance freedom and order? How do we prevent those with power from abusing it? How do we make collective decisions in societies of millions or billions? We've tried monarchy, aristocracy, democracy, theocracy, authoritarianism, communism, fascism, and countless hybrid systems. None have proven perfect. Each solves some problems while creating others. Modern politics still wrestles with the same tensions as ancient hunter-gatherers: the desire for autonomy versus the need for coordination, the fear of domination versus the necessity of leadership, the dream of equality versus the reality of hierarchy. We've developed elaborate systems: elections, constitutions, courts, bureaucracies. But underneath, politics remains what it's always been: humans negotiating power, trying to answer the eternal question of who decides. Politics didn't begin with governments or laws. It began the moment humans had to coordinate, compete, and compromise, from egalitarian bands mocking would-be chiefs, to god-kings commanding armies, to Athenian citizens debating in assemblies, to modern democracies struggling with polarization. We're still engaged in the same ancient struggle. We've been doing politics for 40,000 years, and we still haven't figured it out. Maybe that's the point. Maybe politics isn't a problem to solve, but a condition to manage. The permanent tension of living with other humans who want different things. If this journey through political origins made you think differently about power, leadership, and how we organize ourselves, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that our current political chaos is nothing new. We've been arguing about this stuff since before we invented writing. and drop a comment. If you could design a political system from scratch, what would it look like? What did ancient people understand about politics that we've forgotten? Let's continue this 40,000-year-old conversation, because politics isn't going anywhere. We might as well understand where it came from.